Hey guys, and good to see you back. So, before we start about the actual proxy troubleshooting, I would really like if you would click the subscribe button that you see on your screen, and also if you think this video will be good enough, then you can click a like button and also tell me in the comments how many proxies do you have inside your environment and how frequently you have some issues with the proxies not reporting the data. So, yeah, let's get started. The proxy troubleshooting, and I have written down 6 cases. Probably 6 most common, but those are very generic and major ones. So under any of these, that could be also many reasons why this happens, but this will give you like a quick insight on where you should look when something goes wrong. And for this setup, what I have is Zabbix 501 and finally not a CentOS 7 machine but a CentOS 8. Nothing from the containers, everything installed from the packages, and I also have a Zabbix proxy here up and running on the same machine with a Zabbix server, and one single MySQL MariaDB database with 2 databases, one for the Zabbix server and one for the Zabbix proxy. In the front end, what we can see right now is I have just a couple of hosts, actually 3 of them, where I've just duplicated the Zabbix server to the Zabbix server 1 and 2, so a couple of items. Sorry, not a monitoring host, but configuration host. So Zabbix server 1, 2, a couple of items, and if I would go to the proxies, I have added the training proxy, which is the active proxy without encryption, with compression turned on, item count, and if I would check the queue, you see the training proxy in the queue overview by the proxy, it is growing. Numbers are increasing, so it is getting higher and higher, which basically in my case, considering how many items I have on these hosts that are monitored by my training proxy, I am not receiving a data from any item from these 3 hosts, which, let's say, in the production instance would also lead for a lot of the problems with agent unreachable, and basically if you would look on the trigger expression of those triggers that are firing, you would see that all of them have no data trigger function. And it makes sense, right? We don't receive a data from the proxies, so no data trigger fires. So what possible options can be? We will start with, let's make this 01, misconfiguration. And this will be the first example why I have a queue right now. So we have a proxy, and all right, so where should we check? What should we check? First of all, like if we have an issue with a proxy, we should definitely check the proxy logs. And I have here on my machine, so first of all, we don't need an agent. We don't even actually need a Zabbix server. From the front end itself, we won't be able to tell basically anything. So we will need an SSH to the proxy and just look on the logs of the Zabbix proxy. And in the logs, what we can see, a 1 line is spamming all the time, cannot send proxy data to the server at IP address, which is localhost, since I told you the server is also running on the localhost, because proxy, training proxy is not found. And this message will appear only in one case, and that case is when host name parameter in the Zabbix proxy config file will not match the proxy name in the Zabbix frontend. And as you can see, the host name is training proxy, and in the frontend, in administration section proxies, I also have a training proxy, but the issue is that it is with a lowercase t. So that's it. This is enough for the proxy to stop reporting the data. So if, I don't know, maybe accidentally somebody changed the name from lowercase to uppercase, this will be fully enough for the proxy to stop report the data. So I will click update, and then after I fixed everything in the front end, all I need to do is basically to Zabbix underscore server, capital R, config cache reload, just to save us some time to force reload of the configuration cache on the Zabbix server. And now if I would check again, tail of the logs on the proxy, these lines stopped to appear. And if I will check the queue, see, everything is, well, it's white without any color, so 0 values are delayed, all the data is processed, no queue at all. And if I would check the monitoring latest data, some items will be not supported because master items are not running, but in general, I am receiving the data. Also, don't look on the timestamp that you see in the front end, and actually it matches right now with my clock on the computer, but the time zone might be different on the CentOS 8 machine. So this was the misconfiguration part and how we can troubleshoot it. Check log of proxy, and well, like B, in rare cases, also log of the server, but usually the logs of the proxy will be absolutely enough to understand what's wrong. Then the next part, proxy cannot connect to the agent, and let's draw a little schema of how everything looks like. So let's make this fill with a solid color. So this is not a fill. Like this, yes, this, and this. So these would be our agents. Then we have a Zabbix proxy and we have a Zabbix server. So what happens is proxy is monitoring our agents, right? Those could be passive checks when the proxy is connecting to the agents. Those could be some active checks when the agents are reporting to the proxy itself, and so on. Then, depending on the type of the proxy, if it is an active one, then the proxy will be reporting to our Zabbix server. And if it is a passive, then the server will be querying the proxy. But in our case, it's active. So this will be proxy. This is a server, like this, and these are the agents. Good. Now, so our possible problem is the proxy cannot connect to the agent, which means that we need to check only, let's make a different color, brush, only this part. We don't care about the server part. So if the proxy is not able to get the data from the agents, then it has nothing to do with the proxy server communication, or even more with the server itself. So we need to check again if the problem is somewhere here, then the logs of the proxy and the logs of the agents. First of all, of the proxy, and most likely you will see some network errors in the log. Like right now, my log will not have those problems. That's why I won't really be able to show you, but those will be like first network error, marking a host as unavailable, connection timed out, some TCP connection problems. So some sort of communication problem between the proxy and the agent. Then just think, don't overthink all the possible problems. Like if, let's say in this example, I have 4 hosts and I check the logs, and in the logs, I constantly get an error message about, let's say, agent 1 cannot connect to the agent 1, connection lost, TCP problem with the agent 1, but everything else is working fine. Then, like, definitely and absolutely, the problem is isolated here. And usually, like, depends on your environment. It is highly possible that there is something changed in the network communication, so the proxy cannot pull the data anymore from the agent, and we can even check it. So from the proxy, just run Zabbix get IP of the agent which you are trying to troubleshoot, so this one, and some simple key like the system.cpu.load. So if this is reporting then there should not be any issues on the proxies, and the agent should report back with the data. So if it is reporting but agent is not collecting any data, there might be some other issues, and I will immediately tell that those issues can be proxy doesn't have enough processes, and we'll cover this like a bit later. Another problem that might be is that maybe agent is simply stopped, or agent is crashed, deleted, the server is down, or whatever else. But in that case, we would run a Zabbix get on the host, and what we would get is somehow this is still interesting. It's still getting the same host. Let's make it 56.1. Yeah, so get value error, TCP read, failed, connection reset by peer. So if we get this message, then it's absolutely obvious the proxy will also not be able to get the value, and the problem is somewhere either with a communication connection between the proxy and the agent, or with an agent itself. So check on the host, which you're monitoring, if agent is running at all, is it listening to the port, and are there some firewall rules that might be blocking proxy connection to the agent. So getting rid of this, next one, what do we have left? So this proxy can connect to the agent. A, check proxy logs. B, check agent logs. C, isolate not working agent, or if all are bad, then it's network problem, 99%. A, B, C, and D. Use Zabbix get, or let's say SNMP get if it is a network device, to test connection from proxy to host. Good. Next one. Proxy cannot connect to the server. So again, getting back to our schema, this is, let's say, working absolutely fine, but here is some problem. And when the proxy cannot connect to the server, again, we will not see anything, most likely anything on the server log, because proxy cannot connect. Connection is broken somewhere here. Server will not receive any data, and there will be nothing to blame about. Then again, we need to check the proxy logs, and in the logs you will see something like cannot connect to the server, or what else, like the one that we had previously when I showed you. So in the proxy log like this, cannot send proxy data to the server, to IP address, so the host name doesn't match. Yeah, these would be like the most obvious things. So writing it down here, so proxy cannot connect to the server. A, again, check proxy logs. So more or less every time you have to do same stuff. Check the proxy logs, and sometimes many people don't do that. Like when they get some sort of the issues, big queue from the proxies, they try to check something in the front end, something on the servers. But if you have a problem with the proxy, you need to troubleshoot the proxy in 99% of the cases. Next one, proxy cannot send data fast enough. So there is a queue from the proxy, but we see that some data is going through, and like if, let's say, we would be talking about the graph, it looks like this. So we open the latest data, there is some data, then there's a gap, again data, some dot, again some sort of the data. This is how it would look like, and it means that the proxy is able to connect to the server. That's like clear if we are receiving some sort of the data. It also means that the proxy is able to connect to the agents, again, because we're receiving some sort of the data. But there is some delay, like let's say if we have, how could we call it, like all the data stored in the proxy, and we are sending this data to our server, but this data piles up so quickly and we send just small bunch of it. So yeah, we just cannot keep up with all the data. How to check it? Basically with one command, ps grep sender. So there is only one process, data sender, on the Zabbix proxy. It doesn't exist on the server, and only this one single process is responsible to send the data to the server. And what we are interested here is like the lines that we see describing what the data sender did right now. So it sent 351 values in 0.03 seconds, and we can all type it like multiple times and we will see that these values are changing. 527 values in 0.0. This is absolutely fine. So no problems here at all. If we send the data in 0.0, it's good. There is a problem if we see that, let's say, sender sent, and this value, how many values we send, might be like super high, like 15,000 values, but in some sort of 500 seconds. And if we calculate, so how many data did we send in 1 second, we will see that absolutely not enough. And then what we need to do, we can open the database, open the Zabbix proxy database, not the server, and then run one query. This one, I have it here, you can write it down, and this query basically will tell you how many values in the proxy database are left that are not yet sent to the Zabbix server, but definitely should be sent. So basically that's a backlog, a queue on the proxy. So right now, since everything is working absolutely fine, in my case, I am sending values in 0.0 seconds. You see the queue is not piling up. And in that case, when there are some gaps in slow coming data, there you will see that the queue is growing. Data sender is working very slow, sending like a small amount of the values per second. Then again, couple of options that might be the cause of this. First of all, the slow network between the Zabbix proxy and the Zabbix server, and usually like the ping is not enough to tell if the network is good or bad. Like if everything is fine, you see that all processes are not busy, but data sender is struggling to say the data to send the data, then you should probably consult with your networking team to help to troubleshoot this. And yeah, let's leave this as it is for now. So proxy cannot send data fast enough. A, check data sender. B, check queue on proxy database. C, check network connection speed. Then next one, proxy doesn't have enough processes. This is also very frequently where the users make this mistake. So we have a Zabbix server up and running, we have a Zabbix frontend, and let's say most of our environment is monitored through the Zabbix server as example, and then we deploy the proxy. We picked up some sort of average machine, you know, like 8 cores, 16 gigs. We think that this will be a powerful proxy, monitoring a lot of hosts, and initially we added only 3 hosts to it. Like administration proxies, we see that it has 3 hosts. We are receiving data, there's no queue, no missing data, everything is absolutely fine. Then like after a month, we receive a new plan that we need to deploy, like network discovery or active agent registration on the proxy and add more hosts to be monitored. And we end up having around like 3,000 hosts. Then we start to see the problems, and there are gaps. We see hosts unreachables. We see the queue is raising on the proxies. We check the server, like let's say the server log. Var log Zabbix server, and we see like don't think about this. This is about active checks. So there's nothing bad going on. There are no problems, no slow queries. All the processes are doing basically nothing, so they're not busy. We check monitoring hosts, Zabbix servers, graphs. let's say internal process busy. Again, what we see, like nothing, all the processes are basically not doing anything. So the problem is, again, we're monitoring through the proxy. Server might be absolutely fine, but the issue will be on the proxy itself. If we added like 3,000 new hosts, think about how many processes there should be on the proxy to get this data. So initially, when we deploy the proxy, grep Zabbix proxy, you see how many processes we have. We have 5 trappers that are responsible for the active checks, heartbeat sender, so internal one, data sender, internal process, housekeeper, internal, HTTP poller, just one, discover process, just one, these would be the internals, and 5 pollers, 1 unreachable poller, and 1 ICMP pinger. So when we will deploy 3,000 hosts, this setting will not be enough. And we will not see that this is not enough in the server logs, in the server graphs. So that's why we need to monitor the proxy. And how to monitor the proxy, that's also a typical mistake that could lead to the issues when we don't know that time has come to actually increase the processes on the proxy. So how to do it correctly, we need to create a host. You can call it proxy whatever, add it to the group, let's say proxy servers or also whatever, and like this. Usually, very often people do that, they specify the interface of the agent to the external address of the proxy, which is not exactly correct, because you can leave this as a local host. The only thing that you need to be sure that you specify monitored by proxy and the proxy itself, and click add, because you will be monitoring proxy with the template app Zabbix proxy. This proxy has internal items. Internal items don't care about IP address specified in the Zabbix agent interface, because those are internal items. And if you don't have specified monitored by the proxy and the proxy itself, then you will still see the data on those performance graphs, but that data will be coming from the Zabbix server. So you might be misled by checking again, monitoring hosts, graphs, data collector processes, internal processes, kind of the proxy, but you would actually see the data from the server, which might not be busy at all. But let's say your proxy is absolutely struggling, and all you need to do is add more processes, like more pollers, trappers, and reachable pollers, and everything will be absolutely fine. So in the end, how to avoid it? Proxy doesn't have enough processes. Check performance graphs of Zabbix proxy, which will be a data gathering process busy, B internal process busy, and C cache free percentage. But make sure you monitor proxy correctly, just like I showed you previously. Next one, server cannot keep with the data. So same schema, we have a proxy and the server, like this data is going on fine. Proxy is absolutely fine. Proxy is pushing a lot of the data to the server, but there are problems on the server. And then we will be able to notice that by looking on the logs finally of the server, where we most likely would see some sort of the slow queries, or also some timeouts, and most important, we would see the same in the performance graphs, monitoring hosts, this time of the Zabbix server. On the graphs, we need to check, let's say, data gathering busy, and we are interested only about the trappers, because if we're talking about the active proxies, only trappers are working with an active proxies. So if trappers are 100% busy, then most likely the only thing that you need to do is simply increase the trappers. If you see that, let's say, trappers are still busy, but in addition, Zabbix internal process busy, we see that let's say housekeeper is 100%, history syncer is 100%, and basically most of the graphs are running on a 100%. There are some dots, gaps in the graph. It means that you have serious performance issues with your Zabbix server. 99% that this is caused by performance issues with the database, and well, then it's like the problem is not with the proxy and not with one proxy. Problem is with all of your Zabbix setup currently and how to troubleshoot it. It would be absolutely a separate story. So server cannot keep up with the data. A, check logs. B, check performance graphs of server. C, check for slow queries in the log. Yeah, and that would be enough. Like if you see that slow query like 300 seconds something to insert the data in the history table, then it's like clear. The database is not keeping up with all the data. And the last one, last but not least, too many unsent values. Sometimes any of these can cause the proxy to collect so big backlog that even when you fix it, I will break my proxy again, so that even when you fix it, let me reload it, Zabbix, okay, let's do it like this, Zabbix server config cache reload. Once again, so even when you fix it, you see that the queue is not dropping, or maybe it is dropping, but extremely slow, and you still see the gaps in the graphs, but you absolutely 100% sure that that you fixed the root cause of the problem. Then what might be happening is that you would go to the MySQL, again, use database of the Zabbix proxy, run the query that I showed you how to check the backlog on the proxy database, and as a result, let's say you would see some sort of 50,000 millions or something values. In that case, when the proxy was not functioning for, let's say, more than an hour, and it has huge backlog in the database, it is highly possible that even after you will fix the problem, the proxy will not be able to process the data fast enough, and the queue will still pile up. And then basically the only thing that you can do is absolutely drop the backlog, so delete all the data that was stored in the proxy database and like start from the scratch. You will lose the history for that period which was not sent, but at least you will get back to your monitoring. And how to do that? First of all, you need to stop Zabbix proxy. Then again, you need to open the database, use Zabbix proxy, not the Zabbix server, be careful. And we need to truncate two tables, proxy history, query OK, and truncate IDS. Boom. So after this, exit from the database, systemctl start Zabbix proxy, and yeah, like fix your initial problem. I will fix it for myself. So again, change to the uppercase training proxy, Zabbix server minus capital R config cache load, and then in the MySQL, use Zabbix proxy, and in the query you will see that there is no backlog, like some sort of the values, and then they are sent to the server, so again 0. So to drop the backlog of the proxy database, stop the proxy, truncate table, proxy history, truncate table, IDS. Don't forget about the IDS table. It is super important. If you will drop only, truncate only the proxy history and restart the proxy, nothing is going to work, and it will be quite hard for you to troubleshoot if you don't know where to look at. Right, so we had like quite an intensive video. Once again, thank you for watching. Don't forget about that subscribe, like, and comment section. By the way, I'm always like interested how many of you viewers get to the end of the videos, because I have like quite a long of them. This probably is 25 minutes or so. So if you really got from the beginning till the end, again, please post in the comments just for me to let me know how many such people do we have. Just curious. All right, thank you, and see you again in some next videos. Goodbye.